are joining us because you just need all the help in the world figuring out how to master this challenge of money in your marriage. Go ahead and drop a 1 in the comments. Let us know that you're here. We are super excited to have you guys tonight. We can't wait to join you. We are all going to take a moment to share this video out so that everyone who needs the help that we are offering with our marriages and our money can get it. So we're going to take just a second and share that out. We're not going anywhere. We're going to be here. Maybe. All right, we're sharing that out. Anitra Durand Allen, I am coming to you tonight on the Mom on the Move page, where I help busy and motivated moms get more done in less time with less stress. And today, I am here with my counterparts. I'm going to have them introduce themselves. We'll start with Rhonda.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rhonda Richards-Smith. I am a licensed psychotherapist and relationship expert. And we are so excited to be talking with you guys about marriage and money today.
Catherine.
Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine Shorter. I'm the content creator at Yoked, where we are preparing couples for covenant marriage through love and laughter. And I'm going to talk to you about what to do when you meet that someone and got to talk about money.
And Gina.
Hello, everybody. I'm Gina Lincicium, and I've been blogging about family finance and frugal living at moneywisemoms.com for 11 years now. I've also been married for almost 25. We're coming up on that anniversary very soon, and money has been a big part of our marriage. We've paid off $87,000 in debt during our marriage, so I'm excited to talk to you about how to get that done while you're married.
Yes. So again, I'm Anitra. I am blissfully married to Harold. We have been married for over 16 years, and we are raising 3 children, a soon-to-be college student, soon-to-be high school student, and a right now middle school student. And we have been through it all. Any kind of family situation that you can think about, we are a blended family. We're a 2-income family. Now we're a 1-income family. We have children that are actively involved in elite sports and professional acting and soon to be college sports. So we have had a number of experiences that we are going to bring to the table today. On this video, right now, is collectively over 50 years of marriage. So we have a lot of experience. We've been through a lot of things. We have made some mistakes with our money in our relationships. Many, plenty of mistakes. And so we want to help you all prevent and correct, because there is nothing that isn't correctable. Prevent and correct the common money mistakes that couples make in marriage. And we're going to start tonight with Rhonda. She is going to give us some perspective on how to work on ourselves, whether we are currently in a relationship or preparing for a relationship. And then Catherine is going to talk to us about the process of transitioning from one to couple, right? Because there's some stuff that happens when you go from being single and have 100% control of what happens in your budget to now we're in this group, in this relationship, and in this family. Gina is going to wrap it up with being heavily in the throes of marriage and relationship. As she said, she's been married for over 25 years. She has a lot of experience and been in the throes for a long time. So she's going to give us that experience. And then I'm going to wrap it up with the logistics of having that conversation. What we're doing tonight, talking about marriage and money, was something we decided to do because it's necessary. Why? Because money is the number one thing couples have difficulty talking about. It's the number one issue that causes difficulty in arguments in marriage. And why? Because the lack of communication or the challenges with communication over money is the number one reason that couples get divorced. And we want to offer this intervention for you We want to offer this turning point right now today can be the start of something new in your marriage, in your relationship, in your budget, in your finances. And we want to give you that help because it is doable. It's doable, and we're going to tell you how to do it, starting with Rhonda. Rhonda, take it away.
All right. So, it's really important that we explore our own personal relationships with money before we start thinking about what that will look like once we partner with someone else. So oftentimes when I'm advising my clients about what they should do in terms of what things they need to prepare for emotionally when they're prepping for a relationship, oftentimes we forget about money, but money is something else that we have to consider and what our relationship with money is like. And so my first tip would be to think back and look at some of the patterns that you observed when you were a child. So think back to your childhood when you were growing up, and what was the deal with money in your household? Was money something that was talked about? Was it talked about as a family? So as a child, were you aware of different money issues that may have been coming up with your family? Or was it something that was a secret and kind of closed off and something that you didn't discuss as a group? I think it's also important to note in some families, there's one person that tends to handle the money and maybe the other partner is maybe in the dark or not as involved. So I would also think back to those times and see, did your family kind of discuss those things equally when you're talking about the heads of your household? Was there just one person that was the primary person that would handle that? Or was it done together? So again, just kind of reflecting on what that looked like as a child. Also during your childhood, did you notice when your family may have had less money or when your family had more money? What did that feel like for you as a child? Again, or is it something where you grew up and realized that maybe you didn't have as much money as you thought you did, or you had
So I've lost sound. I don't know about everybody else. And everybody's frozen. So I don't even know what section we're on. Or if you can hear me. Well, now I see Anitra.
with a relationship. So those are just a couple of my tips for making sure that you are fit with your money individually before you embark on a relationship.
Rhonda?
Yes?
I'm not sure anybody heard you.
Oh.
I'm so sorry. Okay, so why don't you summarize really, really quickly what
yes.
you were, because I think we lost sound.
Oh, no.
No, and
okay.
I'm terrible because you were just talking and I'm like, oh, she's
That's okay. That's okay. It's technology. It's technology. It's all right.
Okay, so let's summarize really quickly. You started about going back to your childhood and connecting to some stories.
Yeah. So in summary, so when you're thinking about your childhood, again, you just want to take a look at what some of the patterns were when you were a kid. So whether or not money was discussed, whether or not there was one person that handled the money in the household, or it was kind of a shared and a joint effort. And think about what your thoughts were on that. If you thought that that was unusual. And again, also observing whether or not money was discussed in your household, or if it was more of a secret, it's something that's hidden away and that maybe only one person really knew about. Bringing it current, again, just making sure that you're clear on what your thoughts are emotionally about money. If you have a lot of anxiety or fear about managing your money, outsourcing and getting help from an accountant or someone else that can really help you move things along so that you're not so paralyzed with fear that you aren't able to manage your money. And then the third piece with moving forward in the future, just making sure that you're clear as an individual about what your personal savings goals are, what you're moving toward, what you're working toward as your own person. I think sometimes it's easy to get caught up in the rat race of saving, but if you don't know what you're saving for or why, it can be really tough to manage your money in the long run. So I think just being clear on what your goals are as an individual person, knowing where you want to go and where you want to be financially is really important before you even think about entering into a relationship with someone.
Absolutely.
That's my summary.
Yes, thank you, Rhonda. That was really a great summary. And basically, Rhonda's telling us to look at our past, present, and future, right? Like what informs, what our past informs our present, and what of those things are actual emotions versus facts, because we talk about how feelings versus facts are not the same thing. And then setting a goal and working toward that goal, because you can't achieve it if it's not clear. You don't even know what you want. You don't really know how to go or where to go to get there. So thank you so much, Rhonda.
Of course.
On how we can begin to work on ourselves. And now Durand will jump in and talk about how we can transition from 1 to 2.
Okay, so again, my name is Catherine. Our whole ministry is about working with couples and preparing them for covenant marriage. And because the name is yoked, it means, we look at to make sure that people are equally yoked across the board, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and financially. When you consider if you're equally yoked with your partner, you have to take finances into consideration because they play such a large part in every aspect of your relationship and every aspect of your life. So just like Rhonda was saying, after you've, figured out what you want financially, what your goals are, taking care of yourself financially, you have to learn how to figure out what the person you're with is doing financially for themselves and how that's going to affect you in a relationship as well. So there are a lot of things that you can ask, a lot of conversations that you can have, but 4 basic questions that you can ask your partner about your finances that will tell you so much about them and your relationship and your goals are these. First, ask them if they are a spender or a saver. Ask them if they place value on things or experiences. Ask them if they prefer cash or credit cards. And ask them if they want to have joint or separate bank accounts. Now, those might seem like some random and very simple questions, but they're not, because a lot of times we hear what people say, but we don't listen closely enough to what they mean when they say and do the things that they do. Now, when you ask, is your partner a spender or a saver? When you're going into a relationship, into a marriage, and money is something that is going to be essential to your livelihood, you really want to know if they are a saver, if they're incredibly cheap, or if they have a YOLO mentality where they're just going to spend everything and because you can't take it with you. That's something that you need to know, because as long as you're here on this earth, you're going to need to have finances. When you ask them if they are first that'll help tell you is and where it comes into play with finances or having possessions. As for me, I'm a person who loves to have experiences more than things. And if my husband was a person who valued things over experiences, that could potentially cause a little bit of conflict down the road when I want to go on a vacation and experience life, and he wants to buy all this stuff for the house and never leave home. And that's something you really want to know before you get into, a very serious committed relationship or get into a marriage. The next thing you want to ask is if they prefer cash or credit card. Now, we use credit cards just because they're very convenient. But if you have a partner who uses credit cards all the time and they just constantly max out their credit cards, that lets you know that they probably don't handle money very well. They're probably not going to be a saver. They're not going to be good at planning out things for your financial health and for your financial freedom. And that would also kind of give you an idea of what kind of debt that they've already gotten themselves into before you get into that marriage. Because believe it or not, your partner's debt will affect you at some point. And the last question is whether or not they believe in having joint or separate bank accounts. Now, for me personally, I love having a joint bank account because I want to know what's going on. Even if I don't look at the account every single day, I need to have access to that information so I can, have a handle on what our finances look like, what we're doing with that money, what goals that we have, and are we actually working towards those goals? And if you have someone who is very insistent on having a separate bank account, you really want to look into why they believe the way they do. It could be something very innocuous where they're just used to managing their money and they don't have an issue with you having access to the account. But if they're being very secretive and don't want you to know what they're doing with their money, that's a red flag that you should look for and acknowledge before you get married. So asking those questions will definitely tell you a lot about your partner and their spending habits and help you figure out and decide whether or not your financial health and your financial priorities make you compatible for marriage.
Sorry, I forgot I put myself on mute. Oh my goodness. Listen. If you've never had premarital counseling or marital counseling of any kind, Catherine just got her whole life together. Like, but if you've never had actually say what they mean. And you have to be able to read between the lines, and you have to be able to understand what someone really means when they're saying something, and the difference between being a spender and a saver, the difference between experiences and things, the difference between, what was the other one? Credit versus cash. Those things will inform you about how someone behaves in their own life, in their own individual life, and that will impact the way that they behave in your marriage and your relationship. There was a survey done, 20% of people surveyed have secret debt from their partner or committed long-term relationship partner. Meaning they have this debt that they've hidden that they're not telling you about because there's some issue or some challenge with them being open about that communication. And that's why communication challenges about money are so detrimental to long-term relationships and the health and emotional health of your relationship. So listen, those 4 questions, Michelle Erder-Brochus, one of our lovely blogger cohorts, is on, and she said, Catherine, those are fabulous questions. The answers to those questions have changed over the years for her marriage, and she's been married longer than Gina. So she's been married for a long time. And because they were married young, they had to create their own rules. But I bet if they had had the answers to those questions at the beginning of their marriage, that things could have gone a lot smoother in some places, and they might not have made some of the money mistakes that they made over the course of those years. So Gina is going to tell us and get our lives together about how we can correct some of the mistakes that we may have made if we are in this thing, in the throes, but then also how to get yourself on track to prevent making future money mistakes in your relationship. Yeah. Thank you, Gina.
Well, I definitely was thinking the same thing as Michelle while Catherine was talking, because when you get married very young, you don't really have those rules set in place. I don't remember having a feeling of cash versus credit yet. I was 21 and, out of college with a new job, and it was all new to me anyway. And like what Rhonda said, I didn't have any examples of how to manage money being raised by a single mom. It was just not something that was shown to me, modeled for me. So we were having to figure those things out in the first years of marriage, and we did make a lot of mistakes, but that's okay. So if you haven't heard yet, regular communication is going to be key for most things in your marriage, and certainly about money. And so there's 3 things that I think you want to think about when you are planning to sit down and talk about money. So one of the ways that we've made it work for us over the years is by having to put it on a schedule. And it doesn't have to be the first of the month, but it needs to be regular. So are you going to sit down the same day of the month? Are you going to have a date night? What is the plan that you can get this on the calendar and make sure this is going to get done? If you've got kids, this needs to be without kids. For a long time, every December, my husband and I would go out for a milkshake date, and we would kind of plan the year ahead to set our financial goals. So that's the second tip, is to try to make it a little more fun. So, getting away, going to a favorite restaurant. You could even take a weekend away if you can afford it, and, really clear your head and think about how you're going to tackle your money for the next year. And then last, Anitra brought this one up. I think you need to ask for help if you need it. I think that a lot of young couples are surprised to hear from older couples how often they have gone to couples counseling. It is something that you may revisit multiple times during your marriage for different reasons, and you learn different things depending on who you're seeing. But a lot of those things that you learn there about how to communicate with each other will be very, very important throughout the years, and certainly with this topic in particular. So those are the 3 things I want to encourage you to do. Get it on the calendar, make sure it gets done. Make it fun, and then please ask for help. And it may not be a therapist that you need. You may need to go see a financial planner or an accountant or somebody that can help you both. Someone who's, objective, who can help you understand what it is that you may be arguing about. And then in terms of during the years of marriage, so one of the things that we did in the beginning was, we had 2 jobs and money, and so there was no plan, and then all of a sudden you have kids in a house, and it's like, wait a minute, what happened? There was no plan. So one of the things I recommend earlier on, maybe than we did, is to come up with some financial goals. We tend to do ours in December, like I said, for the next year, and that's when we make big goals like paying off debt, or saving up for a vacation, or saving up the money to buy a used car, things like that. And we talk about how exactly we're going to do that. And then in order to check in with each other every quarter, so that's every 3 months, just like we plan our businesses for every quarter, my husband and I usually sit down just, at home one night, and I'll pull out the calendar and just say, hey, we've got a couple big things coming up. We have to pay our car insurance this month, or we have to start paying for braces all of a sudden. And so we look ahead a few months so that we're not surprised by anything that's coming. And then the last thing is we get together monthly. Now, again, it's harder to get out and make this the fun date night. I wish it could be like that every time. Sometimes it's just a weekend morning when we can send the kids off to do something and we get a little bit of quiet time. And that's when we can actually go over the monthly budget and see how things are going. Do we need to make adjustments for this month, for next month? Because there's always something surprising when you have 3 kids. It shouldn't be surprising. It's inevitable that some cost will come up. So those are the 3 times that we regularly talk about our finances. And sometimes it's very quick, that things are going great. Sometimes it's just a quick check-in to make sure we're both on the same page and that we're still trying to get to that same goal. And again, I really do think if you are willing to go see couples counselor here and there, especially for something big like the secret debt that you mentioned, or something huge like paying off a debt. If that's not both of your goal, then it's just not going to happen, and it's going to cause a lot of strife. So think about meeting monthly, quarterly, and yearly to get these goals accomplished.
Absolutely, Gina. Putting it on the calendar, I think, is the first step, because that makes you committed to it, right? Like, if you make a doctor's appointment, or if you have a work meeting, or if your child has a conference at school, and you put it on the calendar because it's because you don't want to miss it, you don't want to forget. So making it a routine part of your planning, because even though a lot of us don't believe we're planners, we plan for everything that we do. We may not plan religiously or routinely or very well even, but we do plan it in some way. So making it a part of your planning is so important, and then making it fun. I'm gonna be honest, I never really thought about it that way, because as Catherine said, there's always a spender and a saver, usually in a relationship, and the spender is a little more spontaneous, and they want to be fun, and they don't want to be tied to all these strict rules about money. That's why they go out and spend and have this secret debt, because they just can't live with all of these rules and structure. And so making it fun is actually a really, really great tip. I'm glad that you shared that, Gina. It's a good one to add. We're going to add that to our list, and my husband will appreciate it, because I'm the hatchet woman when it comes to the budget in our household. But I want to talk to you about, as we wrap up, Rhonda talked about getting yourself together, focusing on that past, present, and future. Like, what in your past is informing the things that you're doing right now in your present, and how are you going to make a plan to achieve those things in the future? And then Catherine came in and gave us 4 incredible questions to ask. And even though those are great questions and the answer to those questions are super important, it's the things that they don't say. It is the thing that the answer to the question actually tells you about the person that is the most important thing. So if you didn't hear those questions, I'm going to need you to replay the video, watch the replay, and catch Catherine's 4 questions, so that you know how you can enter into a relationship that has to deal with money versus just being a single person. Gina just wrapped up and told us to be committed and put it on our calendar, to make it fun, and to not be surprised about the fact that things happen, right? Like, the only certainty is that accidents are going to come up, right? When my husband and I took Financial Peace University, Dave Ramsey basically said, Christmas is on December 25th every year. There's no reason for us to be surprised after Halloween that, oh gosh, Christmas is coming up. It's the same time, right? The only thing that we should expect is that something's going to happen. And when we are able to change our mind and go into these conversations, because we need to be having these conversations, and go into these conversations with the mindset of, let's talk about facts and not feelings. Let's recognize that things are going to happen and we just have to deal with it. Then we can start to address the issues that I want you all to consider. And the first is that you have to know who you are in the relationship, right? Catherine gave us a very good outline of how we figure that out, especially as it relates to money. But you have to know who you are. Are you the planner? Are you the scheduler? Are you the fun person? Are you the party person? I have a friend who does fantastic parties. She's the party person in my life. When I need something done, I go to her. You need to know who you are. Are you the communicator, or are you the executor? Are you the person who listens intently, or are you the person who does all of the talking? Now, I'm not going to bore you with men are from Mars, women are from Venus philosophy and theology and whatever else you want to talk about as it relates to, who's who in the relationship. But you need to figure out who you are. Who are you in the relationship? And then be comfortable in that role. Stop trying to be somebody you're not. If you're the planner, be the planner. It's okay. Now, you don't have to be, a dictatorial planner, but go ahead and be the planner and be the one that gets the stuff done and get it on the calendar. All right, so the second thing is, what do you want? You have to know what you want. And Rhonda touched on this a little bit, and Catherine, actually everybody touched on this a little bit. You have to know what you want, especially when it comes to your finances. If you are in a place right now, you are in an emotional low, you are in an emotionally stressful place about what's happening in your relationship, especially as it relates to your finances and your money, you have to decide, what do you want? I'm gonna let that sit there for a minute. Because sometimes we're in this place and we just want it to be better. Right? We just want it to not be what it is right now. But that doesn't help us choose a goal to work toward. So you have to decide, what do you want? And sometimes what you want isn't going to be what the other person wants. That's okay. You can have a conversation about that. But you have to have a clear idea in your mind about what it is that you want. And then the last thing that you have to know is how to talk about it. How are you going to enter into this conversation? How are you going to have a conversation about something that is super stressful without allowing your emotions to take over, right? Proverbs 31 woman contributor Lisa Turkhurst says all the time, stop letting your feelings boss you around. We walk around and communicate our feelings as if they are facts, and they are not. There's a coaching model that talks about how facts inform your feelings, feelings inform your actions, actions inform your results, and then your outcomes, and then it starts all over, right? And so we have to know how we're going to talk about it, and the easiest way to talk about it is to stick to the facts. Stick to the facts of the situation. Who you are in the relationship, which you've thought about and figured out, and what you want, what your goal is, and what you are trying to achieve. And a tool that I use with a lot of my coaching clients is commercially available rather soon. I think they're backward when you guys are looking at them, but no, they're not. They're called conversation helper cards, right? And what they do is they help you have this conversation and remove the emotion from it. For instance, if you're having a conversation and you have to admit something like secret debt that maybe you've been hiding for a while, you might want to use the amnesty card, because that will allow you to say, hey, I've got to tell you something, and it's not going to be easy to hear, and it's probably something that I probably should have told you a long time ago. But if I share this with you openly, you won't come back with consequences because I told you something that's bad. Because a lot of times it's really difficult for us to admit things that we've done and to have this open conversation, because we're not thinking about what we're going to say. We're thinking about the consequences from what we said, right? Or maybe sometimes you need to say something all the way through. So you play the listen card and you basically say, look, I have to say this whole thing. And when I finish saying this whole thing, then you can say whatever you have to say. And oftentimes we are listening with the intent to respond as opposed with the intent to understand. And that's where the listen card can be really, really helpful. Sometimes you just need a pause. Sometimes I need to say it again. Sometimes we just need to say some real honest things. And that's where the real talk card comes in, right? Like, this don't hurt, but I have to say this. And so creating some boundaries and some guidelines about having that conversation that will help you remove the emotion from it. Sticking to the facts, knowing exactly what you want, and understanding who you are in the relationship are all ways that you can have this conversation, navigate the logistics of the conversation in a way that removes some of the emotion from it and allows you to get to the point where you can make those plans, where you can set those goals, where you can answer those questions that Catherine asked, where you can put things on the calendar and have those regular meetings like Gina suggested, and do things. Where you can do those things in a way that takes you from where you are to where you want to be.